Hello everyone, I'm Chol. Linux cluster on CentOS 6 and 7, Chapter 6, Linux cluster configuration with Conga. Main topics, this chapter will cover this kind of topics. The Conga introduction and Conga configuration, the total process. To the applications on Conga, and number 4, how to create the cluster using luci and the luci. So luci and luci mean these two applications. Using this luci and the luci, we will create the cluster. Number 5, how to back up luci configuration. Okay, first chapter, Conga Introduction. Conga means the graphical user interface to be used to administer cluster service. So if we want to manage the clustering service, then you have to know the Conga service. And the Conga is comprehensive user interface. Using Conga, we can install, configure, manage these clusters. So if we are successful to install and start the Conga, then we can access in the browser. So normally we say this kind of problem is a luci. So like this. So protocol, HTTPS, and your host name or IP address. In my case, I will use this host name or IP address. And after that, normally luci using port number 8084. So you have to access using this information. Number 4, Conga's two component. I already told you Conga has two applications, luci and luci. Luci means application server to provide the user interface for Conga. So if we want to configure clustering service using Conga, you have to start to luci as application server. So users normally can manage cluster service and provide access to help. Let's see, this is a service daemon to manage distribution of cluster configuration. Users pass configuration details using this luci, the interface. So this luci not must be working in the managing system, but in case of the luci, normally must be working in cluster host. Number 5, all communication. luci and luci need to communicate each other. So for this kind of communication between luci and luci, normally use XML. Okay, this is a Conga architecture. luci and the components, the luci and the luci. In case of the web client, will access this kind of luci host using the browser, and the protocol is a HTTPS based on SSL. In my case, like this, here, protocol and host name or IP address and port number. Default port, if you don't configure anything, then default will be 8084. And in case of the cluster, okay, here, cluster 1, cluster 2, and the cluster. And each cluster will have the cluster node. In my case, I will use like this node 1 and node 2, node 3. And each node must have the luci. And this luci will communicate with the luci using XML. So managing host must have the luci working well, and the clustering host, clustering the nodes, node 1, node 2, node 3. This kind of host that must have the luci. So using this and luci, we can create this kind of clustering. Okay, in this video, Conga configuration process I will prepare for 10 steps, but In this video, only I will show you step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 10. Because from the step 4 to step 9, maybe the next videos, I will configure this kind of things. For example, like pens, the devices, and the pansing as well. Favorable also, and the resource. So when I explain this kind of the topics, then I will show you how to configure this kind of the topics. So in this video, I will focus on only 4 steps. Okay, step 1, configure Conga using the luci server. So in the managing host, in my case, first one, you have to install luci and have that start like this. You install luci and have check the luci is the application and the package. And after that, we have to start this service, luci, and checking process. And after that, please check your the port number 8084. Number 2, configure port and host in etc sysconfig luci. I already told you the luci will use the default for this one 8084. If we want to change the port number of the luci, then using this file you can change here. In my case, I will use the default port number and the host here. So if you have the some several the network interface card, then here you can write down eject the luci's IP address or host name. And after that, number 3, access luci via web browser. In my case, I will use like this, https manager.com and port number, or here I can use this kind of IP address as well. If you are the successful to log in to start the luci service, then you can access the luci using web browser. So if you are successful, then at first time you need to log in. At first time, the first user to log in the luci will be the root, and root will be the administrator. Later, also you can add more users as a administrator of the luci. So you can see this kind of the screen like a high availability management. And here manage cluster, we will create new cluster. Step 2, control access to luci. So if we are successful to log in the luci using the root as the administrator, then I also told you root user or the other user can be granted luci administrator permission. So in luci interface, you can create this kind of the access control. Root and or user to have been granted administrator permission. If this kind of user or user root become the administrator, then they can add the delete users or set user permissions as well. 3, click the admin to bring up the users and permission page to display existing users. If we want to see, if we want to check the administrator's information, then you can use this screen. And number 4, select users from the drop down the menu on the user permissions to set following. So later, maybe you can use this kind of menu as your luci administrator. Step 3, create a cluster. Step 1 and step 2, normally you have to configure on managing host, but step 3, create cluster. So before you configure or create the cluster, maybe all the other cluster node need this kind of the process. First one, install cluster packages like this. You install luci LVM2 cluster GFS utils and the RG manager cman mode cluster. So as a cluster node, you need to install this kind of packages. But here, RG manager cman mode cluster, these 3 the packages will be installed automatically by luci according to your selection. So if you are successful to log into the luci and start the clustering, then normally this clustering, the luci will install this kind of the packages automatically. So according to your option, maybe you can decide to install this kind of package or not. And then number two, start the cluster service. So here, list start in each cluster. List start, the cman start, algemenger start, CLVM, and mode clusters. And number three, disable network manager. So in the chapter 1, I already explained about this one. Normally, clustering service does not support the network manager. So you have to disable or turn off the network manager like this. Service network manager stop, and after that, chk config network manager off. Number 4, configure luci password. So each cluster node, you have to configure the luci password. So using this password radar, you can add this kind of cluster node to your clustering. Number 5, the configure name information on all nodes in the cluster. So cluster will use two kinds of information, IP address and host name. So each the cluster nodes and the managing system host must have this kind of name information using this one, etc host. So in my case, I will use this kind of the name service. And number 6, IP tables firewall configuration for cluster service. So first one, cman. This is a cluster manager. So cluster manager normally will use this port number 54.4, 54.5. So you have to permit this the port access. In my case, source address will be this one 10.1.1.0. And B, the DNM, so the distributed the rock managers. Also, when you create the cluster, you need to start this service as well. This DNM normally use port number, this one, 21st, the 1064. So you have to permit this port as well. And in case of the luci, this one normally will use this one, 11111, like this. And the mode clustered, this one also the part of the Conga remote agent. This one will use also this one, 16,851. And the luci Conga user interface, this one will use normally, I already told you this one, 8084. So in my case, the source address, I will use this one, 10.1.1.0, and for each the service, I will use this kind of port numbers. If you are successful to the login and the luci, and now I'm already to use the three kinds the cluster nodes. In this case, now let's try to make or create the cluster. So first one, in luci host, you need to click the managing the cluster in the menu, and after that create. Then this create menu will show the new cluster dialog box. Here we can configure this kind of things. Cluster name, the list password, node name, and the list host name, and add another name. So if you are successful to create this kind of the cluster service using the menu, then this cluster will create the cluster, and after that, this cluster service will create this file, etc cluster/cluster.conf. So if we want to check your clustering service is successful or not to configure this kind of things, then you have to check this file. Step 10, backup and restore luci configuration. So if we want to backup this kind of luci configuration, then we have to prepare for the backup service. So first for the backup, in my case, I already prepare for two hosts, manager and client. So manager is a managing system, service luci stop, and have that backup DB. Then you can see list the backups. Then maybe this command will create the backup database file. Where? Here. var library luci data luci backup, and after that year, month, and date like this. Then extension will be the DB. And after that, you have to copy the certificate to the backup host. In my case, will be the client. And also, we need to copy this kind of DB file as well. So in my case, I will copy these two files to client system. And the client system here, client system is of the backup server. So copy this one where? Here, the certificate directory, and have that ownership as a luci, and have that service here. Restore DB and DB file from the managing host. Before you use this kind of command, you have to check the luci already installed and is not running yet. And after that, share the -u, this the certificate and database file. And after that, service restart. Then this client system will backup all the luci configuration file. Also, this one also you can access to the luci port. Okay. In this chapter 6, I will show you how to create the cluster using the Conga. So for the wrap, I prepare for this kind of the cluster wrap using the Conga. So I prepare for the 5 hosts, the luci host 2. So this is a manager and this is a client system as a backup server. So I had this 3 network, the interface. Even if there are 3, normally I will use the ETH1, ETH1. And as a luci host also, I prepare for 3 kinds of cluster node, node 1, node 2, node 3. And each node also has 3 network interface, and I will use the ETH1 as a main network interface card for the luci configuration. And here, when I create the cluster, you have to decide your cluster name. In my case, I will use this one, the Legifia, with 3 cluster nodes. Okay, this one is a managing host. So in my case, I already prefer manager and the node 1, node 2, node 3, and client host for the backup service. So in the managing host, first time we have to check the step 1, the install luci and the start the service. So here, let's check the luci. Okay, like this, yum install luci. So in my case, I already installed luci, and let's check the packages here like this, luci. So if you are successful to install luci, then luci will install so many files like this. So especially, okay, here, and luci and the luci like this. Okay, and after that, try to start service luci start. And in my case, luci restart. Okay, and after that, please check the process. So here I can find that using the Python, the luci, the process ID. And if you are successful to start the luci, you can find this kind of message. HTTPS, in my case, 10.1.1.11 and port number 8084 to access the luci. And number 2, configure port and host in etc sysconfig luci. So please let's open sysconfig luci. Okay. So let's check server main party here, okay, server main. So in my case, host. So I define IP address 10.1.1.11 and port number 8084. So if you want to change the port number and IP address, so here you can change. In my case, I will use this information. And number three, access luci via the web browser. So I already started the web browser. So let's try to use HTTPS 10.1.1.11 and port number 8084. So then you can see this kind of script, high availability management. In my case, the username will be the root and root password. Then I can see this kind of default screen. So if you look around some the menus, for example here, managing the cluster. So here we will create the cluster and the admin, okay, here. So you can see this kind of user. In my case, I already registered two users, root and tran. So if we want to add more users as a network, luci administrator here, you can add. And the permission also, you can give each the permission. And if you want to maybe configure this like the preferences, then here also you can create. But in my case now, I will show you how to create the managing cluster like this. So if I click this menu create, then here I can create the cluster. But before we create this kind of cluster, in each cluster node, we have to check the cluster packages. So let's go back to the cluster here. Okay, node 1, in my case, let's check, especially luci, okay, and so 2. Okay, so in my case, I already installed this kind of packages, Node 2 and Node 3 as well. So after the finish and completing the install this kind of packages, and after that, we have to start the release, luci, like this. Okay, and after that, I can, in my case, I will restart and Node 2 as well. Okay, Node 3. Okay, and I'm successful to start the luci and the other things. Okay, for example, service cman start. So maybe at first time, even if you don't start this kind of service like a cman or the RD manager, CRM, so okay, because when we create the cluster on the managing system, maybe this the luci will start this kind of service. Maybe if the luci fail to start this kind of the services, then you can start this service on each host manually. So in my case here, first time, I will create a cluster first. So in my case, cluster name will be the knowledge sphere and use the same password for all nodes. So node host in my case, node01.char.com and password. Okay, before you configure this one, okay, let's check this one first. In my case, the node 1 and Okay, so stop. Okay, so in my case now I don't have this one, and the node 2 also. Okay, and node 3 as well. Okay, so each the cluster node now I disable the network the manager. And number 4, luci password. So each host like this password. So in my case, okay, and node 2 as well. So I already the configure like this. So it is shadow file. You can find the username and password. Node 3 as well. Grab luci etc shadow. Okay. So in the each cluster node, you have to check the application or the packages, and the second, the luci, the password and network manager. Now, the last step may be like this. So in my case, each node cluster node has this kind of information. 10.1.11 is a manager, the node 1, node 2, and node 3. And node 2 as well is the same. So it is the host, and node 3 as well. Okay, so now each cluster node has this kind of the informations. And the number 6 here, let's check the tables. So I don't have service IP tables. Start. So in my case, I already saved this kind of information. So here, 8084, the 16,801, 1111, 20,064, and this one, okay, Siemens 54, 50, 54, 4, 54, 5, and okay, multi-port as well, okay, like this. So each the cluster node like this, and node 3 as well. And after that, also say, because I already saved this one like this IP tables, like in this file, etc since config IP tables. So here, if you save like this, then if you start IP tables, then you can see this kind of port and the network information to access the cluster service. Okay, then now go back here, create the new cluster. So in my case, the knowledge peer and node01child.com and the password, okay, and the luci port, and add another also 02 char, and password will be the same, and the host name port as well. And here, I already told you when we create this kind of the cluster, new cluster, normally this cluster will check the package like this according to your selection. Download, if you don't have your cluster node, this one, in my case, node 1 and node 2, don't have this kind of package, then this one will download this kind of package automatically, and of that will install. Or use locally install package. If you already installed this kind of package, then you can select this option. And reboot nodes before the joining cluster, or enable shared storage support. In my case, I have the sharing the storage, and after that try. And that this one normally will try to access this one, node 1 and node 2. And if they are successful to access node 1, node 2, then installing the packages automatically. Or we'll check the packages for clustering service. So please wait. Enabling the cluster service node 1 and node 2. So now we can see these things, node 1 and node 2. So they become now the cluster member. And here, I already told you this cluster name, in my case, the knowledge peer, will have the 3 cluster nodes. So in my case here, I will add one more the cluster node. Use the password the same. In my case, node03.char.com password. Okay, use the locally installed packages and enable the shared storage. So this one also will check the packages and the service and the receive like this. Okay, so now I add 3 the cluster node, node 1, node 2, node 3, and each cluster node has their own the ID and the both. Normally when I explain the quorum, I will explain about this one and status now of time and host name. If you click the each cluster node, you can see check, or you can check the more informations. Okay, like this. Node 1, the status class member, and the boat and the host name. Let's see port number. And later we will use this kind of failover domain and the fancy devices like this. Also, now each cluster node has this kind of daemon. It's a cman, RG manager, RISC, mode clustered, and CLVMD. So when we create this kind of the cluster service, normally luci will check the luci and if that this kind of service is running or not. So maybe if you fail to start this kind of the daemons, then you have to start this kind of the daemons automatically in each cluster node. In my case, I'm successful to start this kind of service in each cluster node by the luci. And node 2 and node 3 is the same. Okay, node 3. So you can see this kind of information. It's a 3 node 3, port number is same, and the service as well. So if we are successful to create this kind of cluster, then let's try to check. Okay, I already told you, maybe if we are successful to create the cluster, then normally the okay, here. So in this directory, normally you can find this kind of file cluster conf like this. So first time, okay, the cluster name, in my case, knowledge peer, and each cluster node information, like node 1, node 2, node 3, and each the node ID as well. So later, if we study the chapter 8, 9, or 10, then we will add more information in this file. And after that, so if we want to check your cluster information, then we can use this kind of command, clu state. So the name, okay, when start, and the member state, great, is successful. Here, node name and ID and online. So now the local like this I'm stay here, node 0. So maybe if we are successful to start this kind of the clustering service, Okay, then let's try to the backup this luci file. Okay, first step 10, the backup and restore luci configuration. So now in the managing host here, okay, let's check luci first. So here let's stop for the backup luci stop. Okay, then backup db. Okay, and after that list backups. So I can find this kind of information. Normally, if with the backup the luci file, then luci will store their db file here. Okay, var library luci data, and with this kind of name. Okay, then now let's go to the var library luci. Okay, here let's check cert. Okay, here we can find the certificate and data. Okay, like this. So in my case, today 2014 and June. Okay, then just a moment here. Data. So now today is okay. So now this one. Okay, then let's try to use this one. Okay. This is the latest. Okay, then first one here, SCP host information. So this one will need to transfer to, in my case, client. Okay, like this. Client. Okay, then okay, and after that, data. Let's copy this one too. Okay, this one. Okay, then SCP luci backup 2014 7 2. Okay, then root client. Okay, so now I'm successful to copy two files to client system. It's a client will be the backup server for luci configuration. So now let's go to the client system. Okay, this is a client, and the client now has this kind of IP address 86.10.1.1.6 like this. Okay, and after that here I'm staying here. So I copy two files here, host, pom, and luci, like this. So first one, let's copy this one, var library luci search. Okay, and after that, permission ownership luci. Okay, and now let's try to okay, try to service luci restore db. Okay, then share -u and also same host luci. Okay, then after that service luci start. Okay, so now in the client system also can access using this one. So let's try to here. Okay, okay, let's go to the client system here. Okay, and also I started the browser. So okay, also I can log in here. Okay, now I can access also in the client system to the luci. So I can find this kind of the cluster service, and this cluster also had this kind of three the host, and these three hosts also is working well. So now even if this one managing system, the make the cluster CentOS managing system has now this the luci, and the client system also now have this the configuration file. So if you go to library and let's check data, okay, here and search. So here you can find this kind of file. So I'm successful to back up the luci, the configuration file to this client system from the manager. Okay, so far I show you how to create the cluster service using Conga. So chapter 6 summary, after you start this one, I think you have to answer this kind of question. First one, what is the Conga? Second, what are the roles of luci and the luci? And number 3, how can you access the luci on the browser? And number 4, how can you create a cluster on the luci? Number 5, what kind of service must get started to create the cluster on each host? And number 6, what is the main configuration file for cluster configuration? And number 7, which two files do you need to transfer for backup luci? I hope that this video will be helpful to create a cluster service on CentOS and 7. Thanks for watching this video. God bless you.